Have you ever just looked at someone you see all the time and wondered, what is really going on in there? Why are they like that? We're surrounded by people every single day, but how much do we actually get what makes them tick? Well, today, we're going to go under the surface. We're going to explore the hidden psychology behind some personalities you definitely know. Just think about them for a sec. You've got the colleague who never, ever joins for lunch, or that friend who just seems to have it all figured out, all the time. Or maybe that person who seems totally, completely happy being on their own. I bet you can picture someone right now, can't you? But here's the thing. Those theories, they're usually just based on the very tip of the iceberg. What we're actually observing is often a carefully constructed shield, a strategy for just getting through the world. So today, we're going to move right past those surface-level judgments and uncover the real story underneath. So, let's start with the archetype that often puzzles us the most, the person who seems to keep everyone and everything at arm's length. What are the common things we actually see on the outside? Well, it usually looks something like this. They kind of steer clear of those deep, emotional conversations. They're way more likely to choose a quiet night in over a huge party. And you might notice they're single, not because they can't find someone, but because it really seems like an active choice. From the outside, all of this can just come across as them being indifferent, which makes them incredibly hard to read. Now, this quote, this reframes everything, doesn't it? Their behavior isn't about not having feelings, it's an active form of protection. For some people, showing emotion has gotten tangled up with danger or stress, so they just suppress it. It's a defense mechanism. So that coldness you see, it is an emptiness. It's a wall they built to keep themselves safe. And then for others, that distance is a conclusion they've drawn from past experiences. After being hurt or betrayed, the brain can create this sort of cynical script that just runs on a loop. This isn't about being mean or antisocial. It's a really deep-seated belief that getting close to people is just going to lead to disappointment. So, from their point of view, staying distant is the only logical choice. Okay, let's pivot to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I'm talking about the people who walk into a room and just own it. They have this energy that can be both, a little intimidating, but also totally fascinating. What we see is this unshakable self-assurance. These are the people who take charge when there's a crisis. They are not afraid to be 100% themselves, whether that means wearing neon socks to a meeting or telling a really weird joke. And they can be so charming, right? They can somehow convince a complete stranger to do just about anything. This mindset right here is the absolute key. For a lot of these folks, confidence wasn't something they were just born with. It was forged in fire. They've been through life's messy moments, rejection, embarrassment, total failure. And they came out the other side believing, yeah, I can handle whatever comes next. It's not arrogance, it's hard-won resilience. Okay, so we've seen the what, the distant person, the confident person. But now we get to the really important part. What's actually driving these behaviors? Let's get beneath the surface and look at the psychological machinery that's really at work here. At the root of so much of our behavior is this simple fact. Our past is always with us. Our brain is basically a learning machine. And for some people, experiences like betrayal or neglect teach it a really harsh lesson. Being vulnerable equals pain. This creates this powerful emotional conditioning, and boom, you get a defensive wall. But for other people, surviving those same hard knocks forges incredible resilience. The key thing here is that the exact same kind of event can create two completely different psychological outcomes. And then, of course, there's just how our brains are wired. The analytical mind, it prioritizes logic. It sees all that emotional drama as just inefficient noise. It disconnects from anything that feels fake. Their distance isn't personal, it's a preference for order. Now, the sensitive soul, on the other hand, feels things so deeply that the emotional chaos of other people is genuinely draining. It's overwhelming. So see, both of them might skip a dramatic party, but for totally different internal reasons. One to preserve logic, the other to preserve energy. Ultimately, you can see both distance and confidence as part of this cycle of self-preservation. It's basically a three-step process, whether we know we're doing it or not. First, the brain identifies a core need, maybe for peace, for safety, or just the freedom to be real. Second, a boundary gets established. That could be emotional distance, or it could be that unapologetic confidence. But the final goal is always the same, to protect their inner world from all the chaos outside. And this right here brings us to the core idea. Just look at these two types, the frozen survivor, who seems so cold, and the betrayed soul, who just expects to be let down. Their behaviors on the outside look different, right? But the why is identical. Both are strategies to avoid the pain that comes from being vulnerable. It's such a powerful reminder that what we see on the surface is almost never the whole story. So once we start to see these hidden drivers, our whole perspective can't help but shift.
We start to move away from those simple labels like cold or arrogant, and we move toward a much more complex and, honestly, a more empathetic way of seeing people.
So here's the takeaway. The next time you run into someone who's hard to read or maybe seems a little too confident, just try to pause for a second. Instead of only seeing what they're doing, ask yourself why they might be doing it. Look for the story that's behind the behavior, because I promise you, more often than not, what we think of as a flaw is actually a shield. So I'll just leave you with this question. Think about that quiet colleague, that confident friend, or even yourself. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a reason for the walls they build or the armor they wear. Whose story will you try to understand today?